Welcome to another NFL episode of the Bull Take Podcast. I'm Austin Ware. You know the man next to me, the Austin Hill, riding high with the Chicago Bears. We're going to talk more about them in just a second here. But if you haven't already, college football episode came out earlier the day that we're recording this. I'd highly recommend giving that a watch. Truly, I think, in my personal opinion, at least to me, probably one of the more fun college football episodes we've done so far this year. Plus, a little
Yeah,
bit of a plot twist on the bet of the week at the end, so you don't want to miss that as
yeah.
well. So, highly recommend giving that a watch or listen if you haven't already. But welcome to this NFL episode. Austin, there's a question I'm going to pose to you whenever we get into this show that I think will perfectly exemplify so far this NFL season. But you know the drill. Start with our biggest winners and losers from this past week in the NFL, and a lot of good candidates for both sides. So let's start biggest loser. Who's your biggest loser from week 6 in the NFL?
Look, two big losers kind of stand out to me, and they were some of our last couple of undefeated teams here in the NFL, finding a way 2 weeks in a row now to lose a football game. But I'm going to go with the loss that looks a little bit worse to me. Philadelphia Eagles going down 34-17 to the New York Giants. Look, I think the Giants, what they're doing is moving in the right direction. Getting Jackson Dart his reps now, I think, is good. Scatabo kind of being
Yeah,
forced into it. Look, this
yeah.
is a guy that should be getting good minutes. We saw what he did in college. He's been an instant boost to this team. I think they're doing the right things, but this is still not a team that is better than the Philadelphia Eagles. And for them to come out and completely outclass them, even though this was a home game, I think that's enough to be the biggest loser, especially when it's this offense just did not get going, an offense that I thought might have its best game this week.
Yeah, I agree. A bit very disappointing performance. I think it was an outcome we can all agree was kind of a, huh, didn't see that happening kind of thing. But for me, it's hard to say a couple of candidates. I'll go ahead and say it like it is, and then we'll transition into that next point, which is the Tennessee Titans. A new low again, falling now to 1-5, and having to make some big changes. And that takes us into the opening segment, Austin. We have our first firing of the NFL season. Our first head coach was fired. And it's a guy who, if I am being honest, should not have gotten a head coaching job in the first place a year ago. Brian Callahan being fired by the Tennessee Titans following this loss to the Raiders. 1-5 on the season, a 4-19 record in his time in Tennessee. I'll just get my point out of the way, Austin, because you know good and dang well what I probably will say. I am shocked someone from the Zach Taylor coaching tree was not a good head coach. I mean, personally, I'm
Yeah.
shocked if you ask me. But he was put in a bad situation after obviously the Vrabel firing and everything that happened there. But obviously things have not gotten any better. Play calling hasn't gotten any better, and just overall team effort hasn't gotten any better. But your thoughts on the firing of Brian Callahan?
I to be a fly on the wall with ownership in Tennessee over the last 3 odd years,
Mm-hmm.
uh, it is beyond me. We get a new GM and we keep our head coach. And after 1 year, we get rid of our head coach and we get a new head coach. And then the next year, we get rid of our GM and he stays with our new coach, with our new GM. And now we get rid of our new coach. Uh, if you notice, look, I'm not saying that GMs and head coaches always have to phase out at the same time. But it certainly helps that when you're kind of trying to restart and reset and you weren't happy with what was happening before and you bring in this new era and you want to change the culture, you usually want to bring in two guys in those huge roles that have the same idea. And then you don't want to fire them at different points in time to leave you in a mess here. Look, I'm not going to say Brian Callahan jumped out. Look, when the hire was made, we were both kind of, I know you were a little bit more against it than I was because of the Zach Taylor connection. But I mean, even myself, you had a guy like Vrabel, and he was having pretty decent success considering your team being in Tennessee, being the Titans. He was having some pretty decent success, and Ryan Tannehill being his quarterback for most of that tenure. So I'd say you put together a pretty impressive resume. And to just be let go and not to go out and get, any like exciting caliber kind of name. Getting Brian Callahan, who I don't think was on a lot of radars even at the time.
Hmm.
Uh, just kind of a perplexing move. But kind of the thought process is, well, we're kind of tearing the team down. We're going to rebuild this team. Obviously, that got you the number one pick in this past draft.
Yeah.
And usually, when you're rebuilding and you get the number one pick in a coach's first year, that to me says, hey, we're in this for a little bit. We're gonna work hard. And to go 1-5 a year after having the number one overall pick, and to say, you know what, we're not doing good enough. What do you mean? You picked number one overall last year. You've got a second year head coach. I mean, it does not make sense to me. I'm not a Brian Callahan fan. Certainly what Tennessee has done in his tenure hasn't been earth shattering, but what on earth has he had to win with? Um, the best player maybe he's had healthy in his tenure was Malik Willis, and Malik Willis got cut. Malik Willis has
Hmm.
played out of his mind since he left this organization. In the limited starts that he had in Green Bay last year, but you think about the 4 game stretch he played, Green Bay didn't lose a game, and Malik
Mm-mm.
Willis played well. And I'm not going to discredit Cam Ward. He's a rookie quarterback, number one overall pick, not a lot of help. It's just so unfair that, and it doesn't make sense because you look at what Vrabel's doing in New England this year,
Hmm.
and you think this team could be in a much better position right now, even if Vrabel had this team picking number one, which I don't think he would have last year.
No.
Um, and they'd just be in a better situation. He's the better head coach. It just makes no sense. You can't. We said this with Carolina a couple years ago when they brought in Frank Reich, and what was worse then was they didn't let him finish his first season.
Yep.
But what do you expect to happen when you have a sorry roster, and in this case, a coach with almost no head coaching experience, 1 year of head coaching experience under his belt, and you're just like 1-5 after being the worst team in the NFL last year? How dare you?
Hmm.
Get off your high horse and learn how to manage a team a little bit better. Because right now, the fault should be falling on ownership, not GM, not head coach, because they've made 4 changes in those departments in the last 4 years.
Yeah, I'll just go ahead. I have the list popped up here. 2022, they fired John Robinson. 2023, they hired Ron Carthon to be his GM replacement. 2024, they fired Rabel. Then they hire Callahan. Then after that year, Ron Carthon's fired. They hire Mike Borgonzi, the new GM. And now all of a sudden, Brian Callahan fired here. So again,
So actually
kind of
5,
like,
right?
yeah,
When they hire this new coach, it'll be 5.
I believe so. I believe it'll be five. I mean, it is like you said. It is definitely an ownership issue here. Um, you know, I don't still to this day don't understand why they fired Mike Vrabel. Like legit, it still blows my mind how he's not coaching in Tennessee still. And like you said, whenever this hire got made, I was like, really? Are we sure this is the right option? Are we sure someone with no head coaching experience coming from an offense where Joe Burrow had to do everything and made him look like a master? Are we sure this is the right hire? And sure enough, we see where it's at now. Obviously, a thing that helped it was Jeffrey Simmons, who I just feel bad for him. He's had years wasted of his career in Tennessee over the last couple of years. But he
Yeah,
said after their loss to the Raiders this week, saying that it was the worst week of practice that they had had under Callahan going into it. I'm like, well, that doesn't give Callahan much of a shot. Um,
no,
so, so it's unfortunate, and it kind of goes back to the point of some of the other jobs we talk about, Austin, in sports. Who wants this job? Who
agreed.
wants it? Who would legit actually want this job right now? To me, it's a tough situation. I feel bad for Cam Ward because he deserved better. But it's just weird, Austin, because this is a trend that I don't think we were prepared for. So think about it. The last three number one overall picks have all had their head coaches fired during their rookie seasons. Obviously, Bryce Young, you talked about with Frank Reich, what happened there. Caleb Williams with Eberflus, and now Cam Ward with Brian Callahan. To me, it just, as weird as it seems, obviously Frank Reich doesn't really count here, but it kind of goes with the Eberflus and Callahan. If you're looking for a hardcore reset of everything, don't you think whenever picking a franchise quarterback, you should be resetting everything with that and getting everyone to agree on the mindset? Kind of like you talked about with the GM and the head coach being in the same headspace. Because that's kind of what led to the debacle of Tennessee. Let's not forget the whole A.J. Brown trade that happened that literally
Yeah.
shocked Mike Vrabel out of his seat at the NFL draft. So it's a mess in Tennessee. I really don't know, again, who's going to want that job. And whoever gets hired in that job, all I got to say to you is this, buddy. As long as that ownership's there, good luck. I just wish you nothing but luck because it's going to be tough.
Yeah, just a kind of final touch on that. You talked about the coach being fired and the number one picks rookie year. And look, you're talking about a literal year of Cam Ward's career has been wasted because
Exactly.
there's a 99.9% chance that whoever interims this season is not going to be your head coach next year.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a 99.99% chance that whatever offensive scheme you run next year will not be exactly
Mm-hmm.
identical to the one he runs now or the one he runs under the interim head coach. So we're talking about, again, franchise quarterback, and now a year has been wasted in these valuable first 5 years of that rookie contract where he could be learning a playbook and becoming an elite talent. This is what I talked about last year with Caleb Williams. I gave Eberflus the shot when, ownership believed that this was kind of the right way to go, and keep Eberflus around. But look, a year ago, Ben Johnson was packing his bags to head to Chicago. A year ago, the Chicago Bears had questions about their head coaching position. And instead of making the move that offseason and having Caleb Williams learn the playbook he is learning now in his second season, he could have been a year ahead. And look at the wonders it's done in one season. Caleb Williams should be a lesson right now to all teams picking quarterbacks at number one in the next 10 years. Don't waste a season because if you get the right guy and you've got the right situation, your quarterback's going to respond. Obviously, Tennessee didn't make that decision. But it feels weird. How many times do we have to learn this lesson?
Yeah.
It feels straightforward and simple, I guess, from our perspective. But I guess for ownership, there's more that goes into it.
I mean, to me, the question, to me, if I'm picking number one and I'm sitting there at the end of the year and I'm thinking to myself, do I have any doubts about this coaching staff going forward? If I have any doubts at all, there's your answer to what you should be thinking if you're looking at getting a new franchise quarterback on the roster. If you have any doubts at all about the current coaching staff, there is your answer. And I think we can all agree. Eberflus, there were doubts there. With Callahan,
Yeah.
there was definitely doubts, especially after the way his first year ended. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in Tennessee the rest of the year. Really am curious to see if any moves are made at the deadline to kind of get Jeffrey Simmons out of there. Wouldn't that be a great pickup for a team on the defensive line at the trade deadline? So Tennessee's an
Now,
option to keep an eye on there. Speaking of Tennessee, fun fact also, we had the news break while we were discussing there. Treylon Burks has been signed to the Washington Commanders practice squad. So Treylon Burks going to be heading up to Washington to play with the
wow.
Commanders. It's a low risk, reward addition, and it's kind of similar to the offense Treylon played at the University of Arkansas. So if this works out for Washington, oh man, it might get even worse for Tennessee, if we're being honest.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you talk about a guy who's had not the healthiest start to a career, but
Mm.
obviously you saw at the University of Arkansas and in some of the limited time in the NFL what kind of threat he can be on the perimeter. Yeah, I mean, imagine you have to stop Terry McLaurin, you have to stop Debo Samuel. Now Traylon Burks, you can get him healthy and kind of get him consistently playing. Now you've got another big body that you're theoretically looking at defending with at best your third best corner.
I mean, it's not bad. Not a bad option. We'll see how it works out for him. But Tennessee fans, yeah, I am truly sorry for you because I really don't know how long until it gets better, if I'm being honest. But let's talk about a place where things at least look like they're getting better. We're going to talk about some of the games that happened. We hinted at it a little bit with Giants and Eagles, but Austin, let's really quickly just address it about Philadelphia with that 34-17 loss. 4-2, so there's really not a lot to panic about. At the same time, they have been outgained offensively in every single game so far this year. And me and you said the same thing whenever they started 4-0. We're like, what is there to worry about? They're winning games. What is there to worry about? Well, now you've dropped two in a row here. To one, both games you probably could have easily won, even with the offense continuing its struggles. But now you're heading on the road to Minnesota this week and play that Brian Flores defense. Again, what do you think it is in Philly? What can they really do to kind of pick up the level of this offense? Because, again, like I said, I wasn't worried about it after the 4-0 start because they were winning. But these two straight losses, I mean, there has to be some questions asked there.
Agreed. I think now, yeah, we both said the same thing. Like you just said, 4-0, what's to worry about? These guys are going to find their stride. And while I still think this is a talented team and it can find its stride, yeah, this is certainly when you start to kind of scratch your head and say, what do we do now? I think obviously the big thing, the big duh moment, of course, everybody's going to say this at home when I say this. You've got to get Saquon Barkley going.
Mm-hmm.
I look, I'm no football genius, no football guru, so I can't give you all the details. But look, we're talking about a guy that played at an MVP level last year. We're
Yep.
talking about a guy that helped lift this team into the to the Super Bowl last year. And when he's having games against the New York Giants where he's rushing for 58 yards on 12 attempts, you got to have something better. You got to get more production. If this team can't get this run game going, especially getting those eyes on Saquon Barkley, the pass game's going to have trouble getting going. Jalen Hurts' run game is going to have trouble getting going. This offense really last year fed off of Saquon's success. And while I think Jalen Hurts has been able to rise to the occasion in some of these games that we've seen earlier this season, like we did against Tampa Bay, where they just let him air it out. Look, if a defense says, hey, Saquon can't get it going, we're just going to sit back, even with how talented Jalen Hurts is and how talented this receiving core is. Look, you give a defense 4 chances to sit in deep, just pass coverage all game because there's no threat of the run. They're going to get stops and you're going to
Yeah.
not have success. I think Saquon Barkley has to get going. I don't know what it is, but they got to change something up and they've got to get this rush attack going.
Yeah, has yet to reach 100 yards this year. Most yards had in the game was against Kansas City with the 88 yards rushing. Highest rushing amount since that game, Austin, was actually the Giants game. 58 yards has been his
Yeah.
highest amount since that 88 yards against Kansas City. So a lot of stuff has got to get to going on the offensive line. And again, it makes you wonder how much was Kellen Moore carrying this offense as the coordinator? Because let's remember, Kellen Moore was the OC. Now he's in New Orleans. Then you got Kevin Patullo, who's kind of come in and taken over as the offensive coordinator. Who he's been with the Eagles since Sirianni got hired. Just hasn't been a offensive coordinator. But obviously, there's questions there. We'll see what Philly can do this week against Minnesota. If they lose this week against Minnesota, it might be time to hit the panic button. If I'm being honest, in Philadelphia about this offense,
Yeah.
if things continue the way they do. Now, talking about some other games that happened, we're just gonna, and I think this is something we can both agree on. Can we just agree and pretend that that game in London on Sunday morning just did not happen? That was
Yeah.
probably one of
I'm
the
with
worst
you.
football games I've ever seen in my entire life, and that's saying something because Colts Broncos from a few years ago is a game I watched.
Yeah. Yeah. This was
Just
not
don't.
good.
No, it was not. For either side, I'll just say that. But we'll talk about an actual entertaining game. Carolina beating Dallas 30-27. Great game, really, as a whole for both sides. I give Dallas credit this year. Every single one of their games has been an entertaining affair, no doubt in my mind. But
Yeah.
the story here, obviously, Bryce Young, nearly 200 yards, 3 touchdowns in the game. Dak, I feel weird saying this, but it's true. I feel like I said it on another show. I don't know if I said it on here. I feel like the Cowboys are the Bengals, what the Bengals were last year this year. Offense is so good. Dak's playing at an MVP level right now, but with a defense that doesn't have pass rush and the entire secondary is injured, it really doesn't matter. And that's also what happened in this game with Carolina being able to get off a walk-off field goal. Carolina, I legit have no idea if they're a good team, Austin, but they're 3-3, and they play the 0-6 Jets this weekend. Have a chance to get above 500. So, nonetheless, your thoughts on this matchup?
What are they putting in Rico Dowdle's Gatorade? That's what I'm wondering. This guy's playing out of his mind. Shows up for the revenge game against Dallas here. Um, but yeah, I'm just absolutely dumbfounded looking at the statistics from the last 2 weeks. Whatever he's doing, keep doing it, buddy, because he's playing some impressive football right now.
Yeah, he really is. I mean, talking about it, last two games, 23 against Miami, 23 carries, 206 yards, and a touchdown. This game, 30 carries, 183 yards. No touchdown, but still 30 carries, 183 yards is pretty impressive still. But for the Cowboys' perspective, Austin, it kind of feels like, again, it's just this offense is going to have to do everything on its own to try to win games with no pass rush and, again, a lot of secondary issues. So, is there really any true hope for Dallas this year? Or are we going to be sitting here like we were at the end of last year with the Bengals and be like, man, what could have been if this team had a defense?
Yeah, I think kind of the tougher part about this Cowboys team is this team has been pretty all right the last couple of years. But it's almost like they're missing, man, it's almost like they had a generational talent on the defensive line, and then they let him go because they couldn't just sign him to an extension. But that doesn't sound like Jerry Jones at all, and that certainly doesn't sound like
No,
the Dallas
never,
Cowboys.
never.
So unfortunately, there was just nothing they could do to build an elite defense.
Yeah, nothing they could do. And also, when I will say this, even if a certain someone was there for an elite pass rusher, with as many injuries in that secondary, though, I don't know how much he would have helped out a lot if he's not getting
That's
to the
true.
quarterback right away there. So, nonetheless, an entertaining game there. Another entertaining game. Austin, we talked about the potential for a letdown spot, and it happened here. Seattle going into Jacksonville winning 20-12. Just a sloppy game overall from Jacksonville in this one. Just really not good offensively. But Seattle offensively, Austin, we got to talk about him and what he's done this year so far. Jackson Smith and Jigba. We all remember what he did at Ohio State. But this year, right now, nearly 700 yards receiving already this year, leading the NFL in receiving yards. Him and Sam Darnold have clicked. And I remember all of us thinking when they traded DK Metcalf away, they're like, well, all they got is Jackson Smith and Jigba now. I mean, what is it going to happen? Might have been a plan to kind of open things up, if I do say so myself. But your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I mean, I think they've done a great job and a great call by you for this letdown spot for Jacksonville. Yeah, they just couldn't get it going. Seattle looks great. Sam Darnold doing what Sam Darnold did last year, surviving right now. But yeah, Jackson Smith and Zigba, phenomenal season. And it was just, I think they did a great reset on this, wide receiving core. Maybe DK's not working out. Tyler Lockett's getting a little old. Let's let these guys go. Clear up this lane for our young wide receiver. And oh, a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL just happens to be let go of his contract so his team can go sign Devontae Adams for more money. Sure, we'll take Cooper Kupp, one of the most consistent players in the NFL. Maybe one of, I don't know, he's one of, besides Saquon Barkley, the only other player I can think of in recent memory that challenged for the MVP as a non quarterback.
I believe so. That 2021 season was a
Yeah,
legendary year for him. And then
agreed.
something else to bring up, you talking about resetting the wide receiver room. He hasn't done a lot as a whole, but you're seeing it. Torrey Horton from Colorado State, the rookie they drafted, great in special teams and has some big catches too. So kind of talked about it. Bit of a reset to the wide receiver room, and we were kind of like, I don't know, but they've all stepped up and made the big plays. And with a defense as good as Seattle's been playing under Mike McDonald, if the Rams continue to struggle like they are, I mean, could this division be up for grabs and Seattle take it? And I think that's something not many people came into this year thinking about.
Yeah, I agree.
But talking about it with Jacksonville, look, it's just one of those. I think you partied a little too hard after the Kansas City win. Many teams have been guilty of it, and you just didn't come ready to play in this game. And you kind of
Short
saw it talking
week,
about the ground game.
short week certainly doesn't help anything either.
Yeah, that's true. That is very true. A short week does not help things as well. Good news for them, I talk about they're 4-2, so they still got plenty of time to bounce back. And good news for them is after their trip to London this week, when we talk about that game, they got a bye week, so they can have a little bit of resting there. Another game we want to talk about, and I want to talk about this solely for one team and one reason only. Colts beating the Cardinals 31-27. The Cardinals, Austin, after a 2-0 start, have now lost four one-score games in a row. and it has just taken a horrible dive for the Arizona Cardinals. Not to mention Kyler was out for this game, but and it pains me to say this, it really looked like Jacoby Brissett was better in that offense in this game than Kyler's looked in it all season. If I and as unfortunate as that is to say, if I'm being honest, but my question to you is, we both kind of saw it after James Conner went down. Of man, what could happen to this offense really if they really don't have him? Jacoby Brissett made a lot better, but it's still clear there are still so many things that they've got to work on in Arizona. And so my question to you is now with 4 losses in a row, do you think that seat for Jonathan Gannon starts to get a little bit hot now?
I don't know. I think if you're being fair and you're being just, I don't think you can hate on the guy too much and what he's done here. We talked about just a few years ago how talent depleted this team really was.
Mm-hmm.
Which again is why I thought committing to Kyler Murray was like a cool thing to see, but also such a good thing to see because he's such a talented player. And if you go ahead and decide you're going to scrap your starting quarterback too, even more spots to fill.
Mm-hmm.
I think right now we're seeing them get the best out of their guys right now, but there's still just a talent gap. And when these games are close and in these big moments, they just don't have the guys right now to make the plays. I think certainly, obviously, you could think about the seat warming up. But look, realistically, do the Cardinals really think with the way they're built right now that they were going to compete, especially this season, with the Rams and the
Mm-hmm.
Niners and the Seahawks? I mean, look, even though won't say I didn't see the Seahawks competing for this division, I definitely thought they'd compete for a wild card spot. They definitely made moves to be competitive, bringing in Darnold, bringing in Cooper Kupp. They obviously weren't rolling over and taking a bunch of time off. Obviously, 49ers are built well. Rams, again, making big moves to try and be competitive. So I don't think you can really expect this team to make the playoffs. I think you were hoping for a flyer chance to make a wild card or, be right around there. And that's not impossible here. I just don't think that it's a fair expectation, kind of similar to what happened in Tennessee. Uh, I just don't think it's a fair expectation to be like, oh, you have this huge talent gap with a lot of these teams in the NFL, and we just somehow expect you to have a good season anyway. I'm not trying to discredit guys in
Right,
Arizona.
right.
I think for what they've got, these guys have been producing and have been well above expectation, in my opinion. But to me, it's just like a lot of younger guys, a lot of guys you don't really hear anything about, and a lot of guys who haven't really done anything through their NFL career so far. Uh, Thrown in with a Kyler Murray and a Marvin Harrison Jr. And a James Conner. So I just think this team could use some maturing and could use some bigger pieces. I think they're on the right track. I just would hate for this to kind of get all pointed on Gannon when
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they play in a really tough division and just kind of in a tough spot right now.
Yeah, speaking of another team in their division, let's talk about a game. Tampa winning the big game of the afternoon, 30-19 over San Francisco. Austin, they did it. They won a game that wasn't a dramatic finish at the end. Good for Tampa Bay, good for Baker Mayfield. And in a game, guess what, Austin? Tampa had more injuries. Emeka Ibuka goes out with an injury. And does that stop Baker Mayfield at all? No, it doesn't. It almost feels like it rejuvenates him more to make the big throws down the field in this game. So before we talk about San Francisco, let's talk about it again with Tampa. Just a great offensive game from Baker Mayfield once again. And, I saw a report. People keep on saying the odds are still Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, the lead candidates for MVP. That's just insane to me right now. I mean, if you truly are watching all the games, to me, and we kind of talked about like a week or two ago, is it really even close with anyone in Baker Mayfield right now?
To me, no. I'll say this. Look, Josh Allen could be a fair argument, maybe. Why is Patrick Mahomes in the conversation right now? Chiefs are
Mm-hmm.
3-3. He did have his best game of the season, in their biggest game of the season thus far, to
Right.
move him to 3-3. But you tell me that Chiefs offense has looked good. You tell me there's anybody on that offense playing like an MVP right now overall this season, and I'm going to call you a liar. I think they're turning around. Look, I'm worried. They beat the Lions the way they beat them. I'm sure we'll talk about that here in a minute. But
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know how it's not anybody but Baker Mayfield. He's doing it with literally anybody. They could cut all their wide receivers this week, sign a bunch of random dudes off the street in Tampa Bay, and Baker Mayfield's going to throw for over 250 yards and at least 2 touchdowns. He's just playing that well this season.
Yeah, let me just go ahead and tell you this, Austin. Top three leading receivers for Tampa in this game. Number one, Cameron Johnson, second year receiver out of Barton College. Cade Otton from Washington, fourth year tight end. And then 32-year-old Sterling Shepard is the third leading receiver. Of course, like I talked about, they had Tej Johnson have the long touchdown, only catch of the day he had. Also had a great flip there. But he's doing it with these kind of guys. I mean, it's like I said, to me, it's no question about it. It's not even like I don't even want to even discuss it at all. But I had to solve the people post the odds and be like Mahomes and Allen are in first and second. I'm like, what? What are you people looking at? So that's the only reason I brought that up. But for the Niners, Austin, we keep on thinking it can't get worse for them, right? With the amount of injuries they had. And then
It
this game
does.
happens where Fred Warner completely destroys his ankle and is now out for the season. You want to try to keep on believing in this Niners team, Austin, but like it it just feels like, kind of like we're talking about with Thanos. It is inevitable that things are going to come and crash and burn here. I mean, just disappointing for the Niners. Still 4-2, so they still have a chance. But again, injuries like this on the defense go along with all the wide receiver injuries. I mean, it's just keeps piling on.
Yeah, I think right now, if I was the 49ers, I might start to become interested in what a San Francisco rebuild kind of looks like with Kyle Shanahan still on board. Obviously, what he's done in San Francisco has been fantastic. He's taken them to 2 Super Bowls. I wouldn't want to see him part ways with them. But look, you talk about a lot of guys getting injured, and this has kind of been a trend over the last few years for them. What if it's time to just kind of try and wipe the slate clean, maybe offload some of these older pieces while they've still got some value to them, and maybe try and bring in some a newer generation of guys to maybe try and rebuild this team because you think about guys like Fred Warner that are on this team that fifth round pick becomes this all pro linebacker. So Shanahan knows what he's doing. I would trust him, but maybe it's time to kind of, and maybe not a full on rebuild, but maybe reset some of these positions. Maybe see what Christian McCaffrey's worth on the market right now. Maybe see what Fred Warner might be worth on the market. And just maybe try and kind of refresh and reset this team. Nick Bosa, another guy I think of, might just want to float around and just see what you could do with a newer looking team.
It's kind of felt like they're due for that whenever they made that signing of Bosa like an offseason ago. It kind of
Yeah.
feels like eventually they're going to have to cut a lot of costs. And you saw that really kind of happen this offseason. But yeah, I'm with you. I'm interested to see what the Niners will do the rest of the year because I'll be honest with you. I'm legit when I've said this every single week. I seriously hope they have enough players to make it through the season. Like I say
Yeah.
that in a very, it's not making fun of the Niners in any sort of way. I am 100% seriously hoping that they can keep on finding 53 players to show up to the stadium because this is at a ridiculous level right now. But enough about that. Let's get to some of the primetime games. You hinted at Chiefs beat the Lions 30-17. Really, besides the one questionable call that I want to get your thought on in a second, talking about that first touchdown. Um, Chiefs really kind of handled this game, if I'm being honest. I talk about Mahomes played the best game of the season. Defense really was kind of getting pressure on Jared Goff most of the night. The Chiefs stopped the Lions' run game, which is pure and simple. If you want to beat the Lions, you stop the run. If you stop the run, it's a good chance you're going to win that game. But before we dive into that controversy on that first bit, thoughts on this performance? Like you said, it kind of feels like probably the best performance the Chiefs have had this season.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the Chiefs looked good. Patrick Mahomes had a good game. Uh, this was the kind of game they needed to have. This is the game I expected them to have last week when they
Yep.
played uh, against Jacksonville. This game where it was like, oh no, they let them hang around and now they're kind of back. This was a huge, huge play that I thought was just awesome for them, truly, to make this kind of thing happen. So I'm all for um, I'm I'm all for them coming out and making this big game and playing like the team we know. Look, as much as I'm sick of the dynasty as everybody else, I want the dynasty to lose at its best. I don't want to see all these guys just
Right.
get washed and play bad. I want teams to beat the Kansas City Chiefs because they beat them at their best, not just because they age out. Because then that doesn't really feel like we get a win over the dynasty. That feels like the dynasty beat us to a bloody pulp and then only aged out, not really was
Yeah.
defeated.
It feels like saying if that's like how everyone felt beating the Patriots in 2020 was, do I
Yeah.
really count this as beating a dynasty? Do we really count this, guys? We
Yeah,
can't
agreed.
really count this with that. But question to you about the controversy, of course, on the opening drive of the game, Austin. You have the first 4th and goal for the Lions where Jared Goff motions out of his receiver and caught a touchdown. I mean, you've seen it. We've all seen the clip of it. They called a touchdown. Everyone's celebrating. And then 90 seconds later, all of a sudden there's a flag out of nowhere that it's I forget what the penalty was. I think it was illegal shift or illegal formation, something like that. And it was a weird time 'cause it's like, they like did that way after the play, and then they were talking to the rules, and it was like there was no penalty call on the play. There was no anything you can do because he clearly crossed the goal line. This isn't really a reviewable play. And so everyone was like, well, the officials must have just talked together and decided a penalty. Well, then Dan Campbell goes on a radio show today and says he confirms that the league stepped in to review the opening drive touchdown and that the officials who previously said New York didn't get involved lied and that New York did get involved and buzzed down and made the ultimate decision on that game. Now, again, some of the stuff that we've seen the rumors, Austin, going around for years about the Chiefs getting favorable calls. And this doesn't help that case. And it also doesn't help the case. I'm assuming, I don't know if you got to see it, that study that came out by UTEP about the Chiefs. I don't know if you've gotten to see that.
No, I didn't see this.
So apparently, it's a new study from UTEP University, published in Financial Review from 2015 to 2023. Data shows that the Chiefs have statistically benefited from slanted officiating, especially in the playoffs. Researchers found penalties versus Chiefs opponents were more likely to be subjective, such as roughing the passer, pass interference, covered more yardage, and led to more first downs for the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, again, let's just get out of the way. I don't think the NFL is rigged. I don't think it is. But stuff like this coming out, Austin, I mean, it has to make you at least consider the thought here, especially with the report by Dan Campbell saying, no, the league did get involved, even though they tried to say that they didn't.
No, yeah, I think my issue is one of my biggest problems with football is kind of like the arbitrary like whistles. Like for me and you and the coaches and the players, after a play's over and a touchdown is scored, and then we're getting ready to do something else. I mean, like you said, 90 seconds pass. You can't, a ref couldn't, like, had that play been reviewable, for example, Andy Reid could not have thrown the challenge flag after 90 seconds. He couldn't have. It would not have
Hmm.
been allowed. And this had the shoe been on the other foot, and the Chiefs had benefited from this. Dan
Yeah.
Campbell could not have thrown the challenge flag after 90 seconds. I mean, it's a 45-second play, or 40-second play clock. Like, that's almost two, that's more than two play clocks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't get that. But I hate in football that, like, if something is going to be reviewed, the refs can blow, even if you run another play, if the refs have decided they want to blow it dead, they can just nullify that play. Or you can
Yeah.
drop a flag after the fact. I hate that. You should have to call, I've said this for a while. You have to throw the flag when the flag happens. Because this is I'm with you. I do not think the NFL is rigged. Maybe some people have a slight bias. And sure, maybe the NFL wants to see certain guys playing in certain situations. But I don't think they rig entire games, and I don't think they have officials going out every time and just flag, flag, flag for Kansas City. But it does not help the argument when you have situations like this. Why even leave this open, not just for Kansas City, but for anybody? When the Bears are playing somebody and a flag gets dropped 20 minutes after after the play was run, and you tell me there was a holding, well, if there was such an obvious holding that you're going to call it now, why did you not call it
Yeah,
when it
exactly.
happened?
Yeah.
Because it just opens the door for, oh, well, this play went well for me, and now the other team is getting a benefit. It's a mindset that people go into when they love something and they obsess over something. I definitely have my faults where I do it. Again, with the Bears, with Notre Dame. When stuff doesn't go my way, I get a little bit irritable. And then when there's all this wiggle room to be like, oh yeah, well, this play ended up being a 20-yard rush. Let's go back and call that holding. And I get it. Maybe at first you think, oh, I want, again, there's holding on every play, they say, so you
Yeah.
can't call it
Yeah.
every time. So maybe an official thinks, oh, that was a little hold. I'm not going to call it. Then the play breaks for 40 yards, and you're like, oh, maybe I need to call it. It's got to happen then. There can't be all this wiggle room. Refs can't get together. Sure, when you're talking about intentional grounding, let the refs come together. You need everybody's perspective on that. But pass interference, all this illegal form, you should know what illegal formation is. It's either
Oh
illegal
yeah.
formation
Oh
or
yeah.
it's no.
Hmm.
It shouldn't take 90 seconds after the touchdown. Uh, Again, don't think it's rigged, but I think it sucks that the rules are written so that this doesn't happen in the NBA. You
Hmm.
can't go back and call a shooting foul after the other team's gone down the floor after a missed layup and taken a three. You can't go, oh, that three doesn't count. Those last 30 seconds don't count. We're going to go back and review to see if there's a shooting foul. Can't happen.
No.
There just shouldn't be that much wiggle room.
No, there shouldn't be. But enough talk about that. Let's get to the Monday night doubleheader, which was very entertaining. We'll talk about first Falcons upsetting the Bills 24-14. And Austin, again, the struggles for the Bills offensively in this game. The defense, they had a million injuries happen once again, which caused them a lot of issues. Plus, even when your defense is healthy, it's hard to stop Bijan Robinson as itself. So that was an issue number one. Number two, again, the Bills offense, similar to what I said, at least I think, similar to what I said last year. I said going into the season, if Josh Allen's not playing at MVP form, this team's going to lose. This team's screwed offensively. And it kind of feels like these last 2 weeks has Josh Allen, when Josh Allen's not nearly even close to his MVP form, do other guys on the team step up? And to answer the question, really, I don't think there is in this game. And that's really what ultimately led to it. But also a big thing, credit Atlanta. The pass rush actually got there, Austin. It's amazing what happens when you invest in some pass rush, Atlanta. Well done. But obviously, you're a Bill supporter. You want to support Josh and them, but your thoughts on this upset by Atlanta on Monday night?
Look, this is a great game by Atlanta. This was kind of like a fun defensive game. You think about it, Atlanta went up what, 21-7 in the first half.
Yep.
And then the two teams kind of kept it a lot closer. The rest of the game, you think about it, Falcons scored again until their last real offensive drive of the game. So kind of kept it close, kind of in this, this just defensive showdown. Um, but what I really, I'm going to say this every day for the rest of my life, every game you get in this situation. You're running 2-minute drill. You have no more timeouts left.
Yes.
You're down by 10 points. Save the clock, save the time. You have to get the onside kick anyway. Kick
Exactly.
the bloody field goal. They got in easy field goal range after one of the most awesome runs I've ever seen from a quarterback in Josh Allen.
Right.
Runs up the middle of the field. He's looking around, gets directing blockers, creating that avenue to the sideline and getting out of bounds with no timeouts. Hey, clock stopped. Let's run our field goal unit out of here. Kick an easy field goal. If we miss it, well, guess what? We lose. And if we don't, if we make it, then we're kicking our onside kick and trying to get them. I don't understand the let me take another minute and a half off the clock and then hope I get an onside kick with 10 seconds left and can run one play to either get into field goal range or run a Hail Mary. I don't get it. And guess what happened? Because they ran another play, Josh Allen scrambles out, makes a poor decision under that heavy pass rush, like you just talked about, throws an interception. I like Sean McDermott. I like the Bills. I don't think it's going to be something you're going to see very often from this team.
Hmm.
Um, but I just I've never understood you have to get two scores anyway. Why
Exactly.
not, especially when the clock is stopped, why not run the field goal unit out, easy field goal, get down seven, and then you've still got to hope you get an onside kick, whether you score a touchdown, whether you score a field goal. I would love to know the research. I'd love to do the statistics. Maybe I'll do it myself. I'd love to know the odds of getting an onside kick after kicking a field goal versus scoring a touchdown. I bet there's almost no difference.
Yeah, there truly was. But credit to Atlanta, like we said, to get the win here. Then the other one, Monday night, Bears taking down the Commanders, getting a little bit of get back from last year, 25-24. And Austin, I'll just go ahead and get this out of the way, and then the floor is yours talking about the Bears. This is a game, final few minutes, I'm like, oh, great. It's the same script for the Bears. It's another close loss. There's a couple of things you wonder what if. But then, like kind of like the hint you said whenever we were doing the college football episode, Austin, it was like a light came down on the Bears, and you're like, you know what? Let's mix it up this time. And then you have the fumble by Jane Daniels. And then you have the great drive to get into field goal range. And it's Jake Moody, a guy who has literally failed for the Niners so many times that he was cut. And you're like, oh, this is a given. It's going to be a missed field goal. And then the light comes down again. You're like, you know what? We'll let him knock it through for a game winner. So it felt like the apocalypse right whenever it happened to me. I was like, wait a minute. This is literally the exact opposite of anything that's happened in a game. What is going on? I don't know. But your thoughts on it for the Bears? 3 wins in a row now.
Yeah, I'm happy to see it. I think this team is really catching on in the Ben Johnson era, which is obviously exciting. Let's never again. Why Jake Moody is the backup kicker? I don't know. Let's end that now. I'd love for a game to never come down to Jake Moody kicking a field goal for the Bears ever again. Um, but like I said, I did stop watching this game after like the Bears' first or second drive of the third quarter. Look, they played a good game, and I did go and watch the rest of the game. I watched SportsCenter the next morning to see the result. I didn't look at the score. I got up, took my shower, sat on the couch, getting ready to leave work, and I was like, I'm gonna watch SportsCenter real quick and see what happened to finish this game out. I'm pleasantly surprised to see the way the game turned out. Yeah, it's the grittiness of this defense. I love that we were able to get one back on a last minute walk off compared to how this game ended a year ago, which
Mm-hmm.
wasn't awesome on the Hail Mary. But man, I saw it all over Bears Twitter. I stand by it. The Bears won this game narrowly. With good officiating, the Bears might actually win big in this game. Think about the Roman.
That's a valid point. That's a very
Um,
valid point.
this was a tough one for the Chicago Bears. They did not get a lot going their way. Look, I'm going to say it. The play where I turned off the TV, I was like, I got to go to bed. I have to get up for work tomorrow. If I stay up and watch the Bears lose this game, I'm going to be mad, and then I'm not going to go to sleep when I need to. I just need to turn this off. First or second drive of the second half, Bears are driving. Romo Dunze, filthy Moss touchdown
Yep.
and the most bogus illegal formation call in the history of NFL. Sorry, Lions fans. But this was on. They called it on Theo Benedict, and everybody's lined up perfectly. Rules analysts is saying, I have no idea what they saw. They're like, he's a little bit back, but he's within where he can be, like he's where he's supposed to be. And I'm just like, okay, so because Romo Dunze caught a touchdown that's pretty game altering, would have been his fifth of the season. By the way, what's that guy on? PED test Romo Dunze now because he's playing out of his mind. But I was like, I got to turn this off. We're getting raw. And then we ended up having a punt or whatever to end that drive. I was like, whatever. I'm not watching this anymore. I'm going to go to bed. If we lose, we lose. So I was happy to see the Bears get it done without me. But yeah, if Cairo Santos would come back, keep kicking for us, and let's go find another backup kicker that's a little bit more reliable inside of 40 yards.
Yeah, I mean, I was like, oh yeah, okay. So game winning field, who's gonna be? Wait, Jake Moody. Oh God. Oh,
Yeah,
I know. I've heard this story before. No, not again. But
that's how I
knocked
felt
it
on
through for the win.
Sports Center the next morning when they're like, and Jake Moody came out, and I was like, oh no, 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 no.
But yeah, great win for the Bears, 3 in a row. But Austin, my main takeaway from all this is it so many different results, different ways, and the way the standings are right now with Colts and the Buccaneers being the top of the NFL and all these teams being right there with each other. Legit question for you, Austin. Is there a actual best team in the NFL so far this year? Because I really don't think there is.
I think not right now. It depends on the night. You see, Kansas City looks like them old selves, like they did this past weekend, or they play the way they did against Jacksonville or against Philadelphia in the defense, kind of just quits on them, and they get defeated that way. And you think about a team like the Eagles or like the Bills, when they're firing on all cylinders, when they're making things happen, they look unstoppable. But look, when their best players, whether it be Josh Allen or Saquon Barkley, can't get it going, team clearly struggles. And then you've got games like this, like you said, it's a close game. Sure, maybe good officiating. The Bears win this game big. But with the current officiating, should have been a, running out the clock kind of situation for the Commanders. But you have the weather, the slippery ball, everything affected. So really right now, to me, it depends on the conditions and just who shows up that day. Because it truly is kind of a myriad of results, not just for one team, but seems like for every team in the NFL right now. We've seen what the highest of the highs can be for these teams, but also the lowest of the lows for just about everybody. And we haven't really seen anybody through this part of the season, be consistent. Even with Tampa Bay, up there at the top, like you said, the first 5 games of the season were one-score games, and only just now have they won a game by more than one score. So it's going to be this kind of situation where until we start to see some teams playing in like a more consistent manner and we really start to see more repeatable results, it's really just anybody's ball game in any given game on any given Sunday.
Yeah, if I had to pick someone, and it's funny thinking about it, if I had to pick anybody at all, it'd probably be the Indianapolis Colts. And you
Yeah.
talked about conditions, Austin. I think they've only played one game in outdoor weather. So if you really think about it, it's like, aha, so that's what it is. So, but
That's
if
the
I,
trick.
it, but I really don't know what to think. I don't know what the heck's going to happen this week. So let's just find out. Let's do some game picks here really quick for it. We'll go ahead and talk about it. I don't know if I'll get it out considering the game starts in literally like 45 minutes. Steelers and Bengals on Thursday night. Steelers, again, Aaron Rodgers versus Joe Flacco, the icy hot bowl as it was called.
Yes.
Um, Two veteran quarterbacks going head to head. Interesting plot twist, Austin. I just saw the injury report. Trey Hendrickson is out for Cincinnati in this game. He is inactive. So it kind of feels, I don't want to say it feels like a given for the Steelers, but it kind of feels like it, which has me terrified. I'm going to pick the Steelers to win in ugly fashion. Who do you got here on Thursday night?
Man, I was gonna say it might be fun just to pick the Bengals just to see what happens. I don't really think they're gonna win. Trey Hendrickson out. Look, it'd be fun to see Joe Flacco and company go out and win this game. But I'm gonna make the smart choice here, and I'm gonna go ahead and take the Steelers to win this game in ugly fashion, like you said.
It screams like 17-10 final score, and we're just
Yeah.
like, that was a waste of time. Why did I spend
I'm
three
thinking
hours
like
watching
9-3.
that? But let's get into some Sunday games. And hey, Austin, the London game actually seems really good this time. 4-2
Yeah.
Rams taking on the 4-2 Jacksonville Jaguars in this one. Jacksonville looking for a little get back following their loss there. The Rams are 4-2. It's amazing how close they are to being a 6-0 football team, if we're being honest here. So, interesting
Yeah.
matchup in London. I think the last one in London for at least a little bit, maybe, unless there is one next week. I don't believe so. But which team gets to go to 5-2?
Look, there's gonna be a fun game, exciting game. But look, by this point, if there's any team that's conditioned and any group of players that's conditioned to make this trip to London, playing in this maybe earlier slot, I'm going to give it to Jacksonville here. I
Mm-hmm.
think that, uh, this is a team that likes to make this trip multiple times a year sometimes. So I think you've got guys conditioned for it, ready for it. I think it's going to be a close game. I think just being ready to make this trip and kind of having that experience making this trip for some of their key guys who have been in Jacksonville for a while, I think that that's certainly going to help when you have these, big trips.
Yeah, I agree. My thinking here is I have Jacksonville win this game too. I kind of thought I was going to be the only one doing this, but kind of what you said. London is their home away from home. They're used to this.
Yeah,
It's essentially one of their other home games. So I think
agreed.
that familiarity, plus again, I think if the offense can get back to clicking and they know kind of they have a full week to reset offensively, I think you'll see better
Yeah.
from them. I'll pick Jacksonville to win just like that. Other noon game, Eagles and Vikings. Again, Austin, this one's interesting. Can the Eagles bounce back? And for Minnesota, JJ McCarthy has been practicing. He's limited. So, Austin, I just want you to picture this. Walk through this with me. If JJ doesn't play, we are getting Carson Wentz versus the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday. I mean, do
That'll
I need to
be fun
explain
to
this
watch.
game anymore?
I certainly think the Vikings are going to need Carson Wentz to play in this game, or to need JJ McCarthy to play in this game. I like Carson Wentz. I think he's been kind of a fun watch at quarterback for the Vikings, and he's played all right. But still, very turnover happy and a very turnover forcing defense in the Eagles. I think they come out with a vengeance, and I think they force some turnovers in this one and get themselves back in the win column.
Yeah, I will just say this. I probably, if Carson Wentz is playing, I will probably hammer that under 43 and a half because it could be
Agreed.
ugly. I say it's a low scoring affair, but Philly sneaks out with a win regardless. I think either quarterback who plays, I'll probably lean with Philadelphia in this one, very cautiously, at least very cautiously. Then some afternoon games. We got one here. 5-1 Colts taking on the 4-2 Chargers. Chargers so injury riddled on the offensive line, so much so, Austin, that Bobby Hart was starting a game for them last week. Bobby Hart, a guy
Wow.
first start since 2021 for Bobby freaking Hart, ladies and gentlemen. So injury riddled on
Wow.
the offensive line, taking on the Colts, who dare I say have looked like the best team in football. But it's the Colts' second outdoor. No, I'm just kidding. Wait, what am I saying? This game's also at SoFi, so it's indoor.
Yeah.
What am I saying here? But interesting matchup between these two teams. Who do you have winning this one in LA?
I like the Chargers to get their feet back under them. I think this will be a close game, a fun game. I could definitely see the Colts winning it. But back at home, chance to get your feet under you. I think you got a little bit more confidence after seeing what Kamani Vidal did last week
Mm-hmm.
for this team to say, hey, we can still trust ourselves to run the ball. We can still run our offense, even though we're going to miss Hampton, we're going to miss Najee Harris. It is nice to have kind of that relief that at least for the next couple of weeks, we can maybe get by with Vidal. So I like this team to get back into its groove, especially since I believe Quentin Johnson will also be coming back in this one.
Yeah. By the way, can I just say in our sleeper league, I am so butthurt. I decided to like drop Kamani Vidal this
And
year,
I
and then
picked him up.
I saw you pick him up, and I was like, "Son of, are you kidding me?"
And I
I
started
I I,
him.
I had him for so long on my taxi squad because I imagined him getting up eventually, and then the second this season I give up on it, and now look at him. It was probably one of the more
Troy Legend.
infuriating things.
Troy Legend. Yeah, I started him because Bucky was out, and I was like, I need somebody to play a flex for me. I need a flex. I was like, let me get a starting running back and see what he does.
Oh man, but I'm gonna pick the Colts in this one mainly because again the Chargers' offensive line so injured. I feel like DeForest Buckner and that Colts pass rush could have a pretty solid game here, and I think the offense for the Colts is good enough where they'll be able to hang on even if it's a little bit more low scoring. So I'm gonna pick the Colts in this one. Last game of the afternoon before we got talk about two primetime games. Washington and Dallas in the afternoon slate. Let me just say this, ladies and gentlemen, I'd take the over. This could be a high scoring affair between two NFC
Yeah.
East teams, two that are desperately looking for a win. Washington looking to bounce back, Dallas also looking to bounce back. What do you see happening at Jerry World on Sunday afternoon?
I think this can be a close game. I would agree with you. I think this is probably going to be a high scoring game. I think it'll be fun to watch. But I think the Commanders kind of lock in after they say, man, we should have won that game last week. I think they come out and clean up those silly mistakes. And obviously, like we said, the conditions really played a huge factor in that fumble from Jane Daniels. It's not very often you see any quarterback fumble a handoff. Feels like kind of the fundamental thing a quarterback's been doing his entire football career. Um, so I think they come out, they clean themselves up a little bit, and they get a win, a narrow, high-scoring victory over the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, I agree. I think the weather condition being in Jerry World should make things better for that offense. But Austin, I have no idea why. I just have a really weird feeling Dallas is going to win this game.
Wow.
I can't explain it. I really don't know. It's just my thought in my head is because whenever you look at it, you think, okay, Dallas doesn't have a defense. Jane Daniels and this offense are great. How do you stop them? But at the same time, the Washington defense hasn't been that impressive so far this year either. So
Agreed.
it just, and it comes down to the more veteran quarterbacks. Like, do I really? So I don't know what it is, but I'm going to pick Dallas to win this game. I don't know why. I could come back here a week later and be like, what were you thinking, you moron? But,
Yeah.
I'm going to roll with Dallas. I don't know why. Just gut feeling. But Sunday Night Football, Falcons taking on the 49ers here. Look, I hope the 49ers have enough players there in the stadium. Falcons, two impressive wins their last two games. This has been such a bizarre season for the Falcons, Austin. It feels like that 30 to nothing Panthers game was like a month ago from when it happened.
Yeah.
But Sunday Night Football, Falcons and 49ers. What's happening on Sunday night?
Look, I like the Falcons to win this game. They found their kind of momentum, their groove. You think about how many key pieces are really missing for the 49ers right now. I don't see why we don't see another 150 plus yard rushing game from Bijan Robinson in this one. I like the Falcons to go in and take down the 49ers.
Yes, please. Bijan, I need another big game. And Bijan won me my fantasy matchup this past week. Shout out Bijan for the 35 points he gave me. I'm
Yeah.
with you. Again, I want to root for you, San Francisco. I keep on picking against you. I promise it's not because I don't like you guys. It's just because y'all don't have enough elite players on the team to match up with some of
Yeah.
these guys. So I agree with you. I'm going to pick Atlanta. They're the healthier team, and based on the health of both teams right now, they're the more talented team, given where we're at. But Austin, Sunday Night Football doubleheader again. Why do we have so many doubleheaders this year? My
I'm
gosh.
I'm tired of it personally.
Me too. Primetime games are meant to be primetime game. That means one primetime game. But the first one on Monday night is a really good one. I think me and you will agree. Probably the game of the week. Tampa Bay heading to Detroit to take on the Lions here on Monday Night Football. Can Tampa keep this momentum going? Baker Mayfield keep playing MVP level, and the Lions, Austin, the Lions. I've said this stat a million times. They are so good following a loss under Dan Campbell. But something's got to give here for either side. The question is, which is it going to be, Austin?
Look, I'm going to follow you. You're giving this advice out week in and week out, and I just can't take it anymore. After a loss, the Lions are so great. And look, I'm just not going to bet against Dan Campbell. I'm going to steal the words right out of your mouth. I am going to take the Detroit Lions in this one. Back at home, chance to bounce back after that butt whooping they received from the Kansas City Chiefs. You know they're going to be mad. You know Dan Campbell's going to be fired up. If he's going on random local radio shows complaining about the officials, they are absolutely going to score 50 points in this game.
Yeah. You know, if there's a team that's had the Lions number in recent years, it has been Tampa Bay. Tampa has
That's
had their
true.
number. But like I told you, I don't doubt Dan Campbell, and the Lions following a loss is just too easy for me to go with. So I'm going to pick the Lions to win as well. Last game here, Houston and Seattle, 9 o'clock kickoff. Is this game really worth staying up for? I'll be honest with you, ladies and gentlemen, it really isn't. Just
No.
my personal opinion. But Seahawks looking to continue it. Houston, two wins in a row. All of a sudden, they're 2-3 trying to get to 500. Can they get it done in Seattle, or are the Seahawks going to get win number 5 on the year, Austin?
I think the Seahawks are in a groove, and I think right now, with the way things are kind of shaking up in the NFC West, they see themselves as a real contender to start to challenge for that division crown. Especially, 49ers could be kind of falling out of the picture here pretty soon. I like them to come out, stay strong, stay aggressive, and get a big win over the Texans this week.
Yeah, just no question. Seattle's defense is elite going against that Houston Texans offensive line. Don't overthink it, ladies and gentlemen. Seattle's going to win this football game. But let's get to the bet of the week to wrap it up, Austin. My gosh, bets of the week on here and in college football have just been
Bad.
just a
Wrong.
disaster and a half, if we're being honest here. So let's hopefully, Austin, we change the course of that with our bets of the week for this week. What do you got for your bet of the week?
Look, I'm going with a team that's instilling confidence in me, one that's fun to watch, a team that I think is turning a corner. I'm going to take the Giants +7 against Denver. That's a
Mm,
pretty big spread in NFL terms. And I think with the way their offense is playing right now, they're certainly primed to keep it close, even though I know this is a pretty great Broncos defense. I don't know that they'll win, but I think they can cover that plus 7 points.
Absolutely. I like that. Just don't tell David Green that I like that because he's a Broncos fan, so he won't be too happy about that. But I agree with it. My bet of the week, I am literally found, Austin. I thought I found a disgusting game with the college football bet 2 weeks ago, but I found it, Austin. I have found it. 1-5 Browns and the 1-5 Dolphins in Cleveland. Those two
Oh
facing
no.
off. And then Austin, get this 10 hours ago, a weather report came in. Dolphins and Browns game in Cleveland could have 50 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts. The National Weather Service says it's certainly a system worth keeping an eye on as a stronger storm may materialize. 94% chance of rain, at least 40 mile per hour wind gust, 60 plus degrees. Give me Browns Dolphins under 37 and a half. This game is going to be disgusting. It will be
That's
awful,
bad.
and you can this is one of those kind of similar to your old your bets on London whenever you just bet the under. This is one of those where you could just place the under. You don't even need to keep track of this game because it's just going to be so horrible. I would not make you watch it. So,
Yeah,
Browns Dolphins under 37 and a half in the biggest of the biggest tank bowls so far this year. Well,
that will be awful.
it will be very awful. But what's not awful is the college football episode that I highly recommend you go give a watch now that you've made it through the NFL episode here. But that is going to do it for us at the Bold Take Podcast. Enjoy another great weekend of football. That's Austin Hill. I'm Austin Wader. We want to thank you for watching.